In the previous section, we talked about the trigonometric ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent. We use those to find the ratio of the lengths of two sides of a right triangle. In this section, we're going to use the inverse of the trigonometric ratios to find the measure of the angle using the inverse of either the sine, cosine, or the tangent. Okay. Now in this example, notice we have our little figure here, our triangle. We see that the measures are given for the leg opposite of angle T, which is 29, and the hypotenuse. Notice it's directly across from the 90-degree angle, okay? So from our little saying here, SOHCAHTOA, we know that the one that has an opposite and a hypotenuse is the sine. So that's what we will be using to find the angle measure, okay? So the sine of angle T is equal to the opposite leg over the hypotenuse, and we can take those measures, 29 over 34. Since the sine of angle T is equal to 29 over 34, then we know that the inverse of the sine of 29 over 34 should give us the measure of angle T. Okay, so we're going to stick that into our calculator so you can see how it is done. But the first thing I need to show you guys is how to actually get your calculator functioning correctly, okay? When you originally get your calculator, you'll click on this button that says mode here, and you'll use your arrow down keys to scroll down to where it says radian and degrees, okay? We need the calculator to say degrees, so we use our arrow keys to get over to degrees, and then we click on this enter button, okay? Notice that now it is flashing over degree. Once it is flashing over degree, it is set for us to work, so we can do second quick to get out of there, okay? So in order to get the inverse of sine, we're going to have to take this second and then click on this sine button. Notice it has the sine inverse up here, okay? And then type in our numbers, 29 over 34. That gives us the approximate of 58.5 degrees, okay? So let's do number one. Okay, so we're going to use our calculator to find the measure of angle T to the nearest tenth. We notice here that angle T, we have the measurements for an adjacent side and the opposite side. If we think back to SOHCAHTOA, we know that the adjacent and the opposite side are a tangent, okay? So if we take the inverse of the tangent of 14 square roots of 3, okay, opposite over adjacent, we'll have 14 square roots of 3 over 34. Okay, when we stick that into our calculator, again, second, go down to tangent. I'm going to add in an extra parenthesis here, 14 square roots of 3, arrow over. I use the arrow over here to get rid of the square root in there. Okay, and then divide that by 34. That gives me approximately 35.5 degrees. Okay, approximately 35.5 degrees. The next one, okay, I know angle T. I have the leg that is opposite of the 90-degree angle, so we're going to call that the hypotenuse. We have the leg that is opposite angle T, which is 7. So when we think of SOHCAHTOA, we know opposite over hypotenuse is sine. Okay, so we take the inverse of sine, which is 7 over 18. When we stick that into our calculator, second sine, and then type in 7 over 18. That gives us approximately 22.9 degrees. 22.9. Okay. Number 3. We look at this angle T. we have a side that's adjacent, and we have the hypotenuse. Okay, so adjacent, hypotenuse, that is the cosine. Okay, so we take the cosine inverse of 34, the adjacent side, over the hypotenuse. We stick that into our calculator. Second cosine, 34 over 87. That gives us approximately 67 degrees. I should be putting degrees on all of these. Okay, 67 degrees. Number 4, we have a side that is adjacent, and we have the hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse is equal to the cosine. Okay, adjacent is 32. The hypotenuse is 101. We put that into our calculator. And that gives us approximately 71.5 degrees. Number 5, angle T. We have the adjacent and we have the hypotenuse. Again, cosine. Over the hypotenuse. Extra parentheses. Arrow over, close parentheses, divided by 67, gives us approximately 75 degrees. Number 6, angle T. We have the opposite side and we have the hypotenuse. So we know that is sine opposite 14 square roots of 2 over the hypotenuse, which is 39. Stick an extra parentheses, 14 square roots of 2, going to arrow over, close parentheses, divided by 39, gives us approximately 30.5 degrees.